Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Epic Heathen podcast. Welcome indeed. What you have just heard is Sasan's cover of Thorns of Ice. Super cool, right? And before we start, I want to mention that the Moonsorrow book is available to pre-order. Home of the Waves, Conversation with Moonsorrow. 400 pages, full of interviews with Moonsorrow. Really interesting. Cult Never Dies is the publisher. You will find the link in description. Check it out. Super cool. Available. Get it. Today we are discussing demos. And if you haven't heard them, go back to the previous episode because I included all the music in that one. There is very little talking. There is a lot of music in the previous episode. I mean, not the last upload because the last two uploads were like short updates, but the last proper episode, longer upload, that was all the demos. On Spotify, it has been deleted, by the way, because Spotify doesn't like episodes which are mostly music, so they said goodbye. But anyway, it's on YouTube, it's on Apple Podcasts, it's everywhere else. We are talking about demos, just 3 of them, because Tama and Talvi is pretty long, so that will be the next episode. And there is one thing that I would like to point out first, because for the first half of this episode, we are talking as if the drums were played with keyboard, like a keyboard that instead of normal notes has drum sounds. And that's not the case for any of these demos. Actually, the very first demo, Thorns of Ice, we will discuss it extensively, but it does have real drums, and those are played by Ville, and vocals by Henry. So it's a strange one in this regard. Just wanted to point it out because we mentioned it quite a few times and it's mistaken. Actually, we correct it after like 1 hour, but I just wanted to make it clear from the beginning. Okay, this episode has lots of edits, lots of little things here and there. I really hope you will like it. Lots of information, lots of fun facts. So, let's go! In this episode, we are going to talk about the first 3, that is Thorns of Ice, Metsä in both versions, and Promo 97. So, here with me is part of the team. Not everybody could be here today. So first on my screen is Thomas from France. How are you?
Yeah, hello everybody. I'm fine. Back to work. New video game project. Sounds exciting and glad to be back.
Beautiful. Francesco from Italy. How are you?
I'm fine, thanks. And nice to talk about the demos today.
And Sasan from New York. How are you?
Doing good. I'm actually recording demos right now. So I'm in a demo mood. I've been listening to a lot of demos, been thinking a lot about demos. You don't really hear demos anymore, right? Because they whatever. We'll get into this in a minute, but maybe that's probably the first thing we're going to talk about. Like, do bands still like release demos, or it just sounds too much like the album to even release? Because you're just recording on like a computer that uses the same plugins and whatever. Like maybe you have fake drums instead of real drums, but do bands still release demos of like?
I just
Is
bought
that
a demo from Raise from Germany.
but you know, like when you listen to albums from like the 80s and 90s, like a bonus track will be like the demo version. But like, do bands still do that?
I don't think so.
Huh.
I don't know. Yeah, I saw Raise in Germany. It's a band formed with the members of the black metal band Occulta from Berlin and the singer from Maggot Heart. I forgot the name. And yeah, it's a 4-track tape. So it's a like okay, we'll have the sound of the demo of a demo. It's basically a demo, but it's good like this. So we are going to sell it, I think.
Yeah.
Pretty good act, by the way. Very violent and evil.
So in this case, what does it mean being a demo? Did they record it at home? Although nowadays people record albums at home. Anyway, look at Alexi, French Alexi.
Yeah, I don't think so. In this case, I mean they have like huge CVs and stuff. Like they played in so many bands. They have already successful bands, so they have a place to record. And I think it's just like, yeah, we have a new project together, so let's record 4 tracks and do a tape with a small underground label and be the underground way that the Europeans want. Maybe the Americans too.
It definitely feels almost like I don't know, more of a vibe thing than like you used to have a demo because you would send it to a record company and you were trying to get them to give you a record deal. You weren't like trying to release that for people to hear, right? But now you don't really like most small metal bands and whatever. Maybe they get money to go to a studio, but you're pretty much just recording your own music, and then a label will give you some money afterwards, right? So if you're recording your own music, it starts to kind of blur the line between like what's a demo and what isn't. Because it used to be like if it was in a studio or if it wasn't.
It's recorded in their rehearsal room in Berlin.
Right. Okay.
And it's literally named demo.
That's fair.
Demo.
That's fair.
But well, look at actually the demos that we're going to talk about today. For example, Metsä, it was released and not only for labels, they were selling it to people. And back then there were lots like that. Yeah, I guess the purpose was to become well known and get the attention of a label, but they were still sold and distributed to people.
I think there is another thing we can add to the concept of a demo is because Thorns of Ice is 1996, if I
Yes.
recall correctly.
5.
Yeah, it's my
No, not
age.
6.
Like
6.
Oh, 6.
yeah, so it's 28 years old this year.
Hmm.
And it's probably at that time it was like kind of a step you had to take when you were young and making some music in those styles. Those guys made a demo this year because that was fun to make a demo for a new project of them. But probably, I don't know, I wasn't born yet at that time. But back in the day, you maybe had to make a demo just to check, like, can we record? Are we good enough? Not even musically, but just with ourselves. Just can we like do a first production that costs basically nothing, or just our spare money?
I mean, yeah, that's like being able to like go into a recording studio and play all your parts and walk out without, because you're paying for the time you use, right? So if you go in and it takes you 5 days to play a riff right, then it's either going to cost you $1 million or it's
Yeah.
going to come out sounding terrible. So I think that's a good point that like you need practice like actually recording music, and this was before everybody had laptops that could do that. Um, Back in like 2005, my sister's boyfriend at the time, so like he was like 17 or 18, I was like 14, was recording a demo, and he had like a little 8 track and actually recorded a riff on there, and it was really hard. It was like the first time I tried playing to like a metronome, which you don't think about that stuff when you're just starting to learn how to play an instrument, but it it's tough, and it's good practice to actually like record stuff. So definitely.
I think there is this really interesting thing thinking about the 90s when you were a kid, like in a remote place. So you had to put some energy to get some gear, probably some shitty gear as well, try to learn it properly to make some songs, and then the studio will cost you money, like yeah, by the time. So you have to kind of okay, we can't do an album. We have to just like try to do some stuff with the money we have, and this is the first studio experience ever in our lives.
Yeah. Well, and
And
you also don't have a way of hearing the music altogether, right? It's two
yeah,
people, and they can't like play the guitar and the drums. They can't hear those at the same time because it's the same person playing both.
basically
Totally.
they need a third party to assemble everything to mix and with
Yeah.
to mix
Yeah.
the
I have a
the
lot of
stuff back in
thoughts
the
on
day.
demos in general. I don't know if you guys have ever listened to Nebraska, the Bruce Springsteen album, but
Nope.
it's a lot to be said there. He recorded a bunch of songs on like a 4 track in a hotel room that were meant to be demos that he would re-record with a full band. And he decided half the songs sounded better like that and just released them. And the album was called Nebraska. And the other half of the album that he did record with a full band was Born in the USA, I think, like whatever his biggest album is. But and like Adele will like always use her demo vocals on the actual track because they sounded fresher the first time she sang them. I don't know. But there's definitely a lot of like interesting stuff around demos versus like formal studio time, and kind of how the vibes are different.
It's probably still a moment where things are can be changed, can evolve, and but are also very like kind of true. If you love true, like very the word in
Authentic.
French is the same word as concrete. So I don't want to
Yeah.
say concrete, but it's very yeah, it's here. It's in that moment you did that, and it sounds like
Mm,
that. And probably demos also don't have any kind of the more making that we have in a recorded album with a lot of work and thoughts. So it's more like yeah, raw, perfect word.
yeah.
Shall we start talking about Moonsorrow?
Yeah,
Yeah, no, I
No,
where do you
if
want
you
to
want to
start?
continue the conversation, please do.
oh no, perfect
No,
introduction.
no, no.
I just wanted to
You got to
say
step
yeah.
in. You got to step in and be like, this isn't a Bruce Springsteen podcast. You need to stop.
Well, what is the concept of demo, which I hadn't thought about discussing, but it's a great idea.
Should I say my opinion about demos now?
No,
Please,
we don't
yes.
care about yours. No, yours is not really important.
Okay. Well, I think demos were different in the 90s because nowadays everyone can make his own home studio and have a decent quality. Maybe not like an album in studio, but demos do not sound raw as in the 80s or the 90s nowadays, I think. But yeah, you should take one single case and compare to another. So there is no definitive answer to this. But now we can talk about Moonsorrow and close this introduction about demos.
Ton 10 tin. Editing in.
I guess it's worth pointing out that nowadays, in 2025, songwriting is still done, well, in the case of Moonsorrow, is still done on a computer. Henry has his Cubase projects, and what he can easily record, which is guitars and bass, he records, vocals, he reads whatever instruction manual or anything with words, so that he can just get the intonations and that stuff. He does record the drums using a keyboard that sounds like drums, and that's a demo that then he sends to his bandmates so that everybody can rehearse at home and then play it in the studio. There is an explanation about it in the book, actually. It's like 3 pages where he's just describing the whole process from beginning to end. Well, obviously those demos are not intended for releasing or for the public, but if you have the Blood Music vinyl box set, Very Saket has 3 records, 1 song per side, and the 6th side has the demo of Jotunheim, and everything is keyboards there, no vocals, however. So, well, it's obviously a different sort of demo than what we are talking about in this episode, but they're still demos, right?
Tin 10 ton. Editing done.
Actually, well, now that you say this, I'm going to continue. Mention that, as you said, there's lots of variety of cases, and I'm thinking of a Spanish band, a Spanish rock band called Extremoduro. Either if you're not Spanish, it's very unlikely that you know about them, but they did like the first crowdfunding in '88 or something like this. They were selling these little papers in the bars, which said it was 1,000 pesetas, so like, well, the change is 6 euros, but back then it was worth a bit more anyway. And the paper said, this is like a voucher or whatever for the first demo of Extremoduro, whenever it comes out. And they sold, I think, 150 of those, or maybe 200. And they went to Madrid because they were from some village in Extremadura. They went to Madrid and recorded that in a studio. But it is a demo. It sounds like a demo. Very terrible sound. They recorded it in '89. Especially the guitars are fucking horrible. So I guess they needed that money just to have access to recording equipment, but the lowest of it, and I suppose very little time. And I guess, I don't know if they recorded live or not, but I guess they did, or very quickly at least. And it is a demo. Like a studio demo.
I love that story. It's great.
Yeah, the crowdfunding story is pretty cool. Okay, so Moonsorrow. We have first, 1996, a demo called Thorns of Ice, which was recorded by them. It had 4 songs. It was recorded by Ville and Henry alone, because that was Moonsorrow at the time. That was lots of bands at the time, Henry Sorvali and Ville Sorvali. And they were recording lots of tapes with lots of different band names, sometimes for fun, as you may remember from the interview we did 3 years ago, often they weren't taking them, 3 years already. Often they weren't taking themselves very seriously. and because they didn't dare sort of to play on the league of the old guys, so they tried to like decrease themselves a bit. And this one had 4 songs. The first one was Ravens, a sculpture of stone. And this was an acoustic song. I never heard it, but Henry told me. Then the second song was Forgotten Woods of Sorrow, which, according to his description, it was basically 2 riffs repeated, but then there was other stuff, partly improvised, going on around those riffs. And this was, according to them, the good song. Then the second one, so there was an intro, the first song. The second song is Thrones of Ice, and that we could hear. And then the last one is Wolves, is an outro, Wolves, a sculpture of snow. And fun fact, originally it was going to be released under the name Sorrow Woods, in one word, which is a bit awkward because it has 2 W's right after each other, Sorrow Woods. In the last moment, they decided to change the name of the band. They had a
Good
cover
thing,
and
by the way.
everything. Sorry? Yeah, good thing for sure. Well, I don't know if Moonsorrow, I feel that we all love Moonsorrow so much that we don't pay too much attention to the name. But if you think about it, Moonsorrow is not a very good name.
I
It's a bit
pay
gothic.
attention to the name. I have to tell a lot of people my favorite band is a band called Moonsorrow, and yeah, but I think Sorrow Woods is another level yet, like more cliche and embarrassing. Moonsorrow's cool. Like it's not, it's super cheesy, but it's cheesy in it's like good cheesy.
Maybe
It's
they should have stick with Sorrow Woods, but put the woods before and change the W to an M. It was like Moonsorrow, and it was like just a Moody Blues cover band.
Shut the fuck up, will you?
I have a question that you don't know the answer to. Do you know how they recorded the demos? Like what they recorded it on or with?
A piece of wood, maybe.
I told you to shut up, Thomas. I'm joking, of course.
I'm joking too.
I don't remember if they had a 4-tracker.
Yeah.
Dear audience, there is a book coming out later this year about Moonsorrow, full of interviews, unreleased interviews, and I'm going to read some of it because there are some discussions about these first few demos. It doesn't say here, but I'm not finding now. I think they used to have a 4-tracker, but so I don't know how they recorded this particular one, but they explain how at first they were just recording with a radio boombox thing, simply press a record button and then play live. Then they invented the stereo, which was recording first on one boombox, whatever they were playing on one channel, and then grabbing another boombox and playing the first tape and at the same time the new tracks. So that was the 2-track.
Yeah.
And then
The
he got
90s.
a 4-track recording machine. I just don't know at what point he got it. So I don't know if they used it for this first demo or not. For Metsä, I think they did.
Yes, but before that I only had this Walkman from the 80s, which had this record button, so we could at least record while we play. And then in 1994 I got this 4-tracker, and then we started to experiment with that.
Yeah. And I think before the 4-tracker, there was also the phase with 2 tape recorders, because we invented a 2-track. We could record something on a Walkman, and then we could put another recorder on, play the music from the Walkman and play something on top of it.
Yeah, that's true.
While the other recorder was recording it. That's how we started. So
yeah, this demo was recorded. Then it was the tape was corrupted, and they hadn't made a copy, so it was lost forever. Only the second half was saved actually, but it was the worst one, and they didn't want to re-record the first song because it was partially improvised, and it was that take that they wanted, and they thought whatever. So then they reused the cover artwork for a Lunar Womb demo. Lunar Womb is a project that Henry had, I think, himself alone, which was what is this synth? Dungeon synth.
Ton 10 tin. Editing in.
Well, if we're already talking about Lunar Womb, and honestly, it's unlikely that we will mention this project again, I thought I'd give you a few more details about it. Lunar Womb released 3 tapes in total. In the first one, which is called Planets, actually it was a band of 3 people. Henry, Ville, and another guy called Haradray, I don't know how to pronounce it, real name Sami, who, additional fun fact, was the keyboard player in the first Moonsorrow show. It was his first and last Moonsorrow show. Anyway, this tape, Planets, the first Lunar Womb demo, indeed has the cover that would have been for Thorns of Ice, just with a different title and band logo, and didn't only recycle the cover but also one song. This tape has 3 songs, and the second one, called As the Winter Comes, is exactly the same from beginning to end as Wolves of Sculptured Snow. So I guess they weren't so dissatisfied with that track at least, and honestly, it matches Lunar Womb a lot better than it matches Moonsorrow. Lunar Womb is dungeon synth, pretty much, and that track is also sort of dungeon synth, or well, ambient. This tape was released in late 1996. Then in 97, another one was released called The Astral Grief, but at this point it was Henry alone. And then, this was in 97, and then in 98 or 99, a third tape was recorded, but not released until 2017. That's 3 days ago, right? In 2017, Henry released via Bandcamp the third Lunar Womb demo, which is called The Sleeping Green, and it's actually still available. So if you search for Lunar Womb, you will find the Bandcamp and you will be able to download it. It was even released on tape in 2017, but it's sold out and now it's very expensive.
Tin 10 ton. Editing done.
So that is all the details you never needed to know about the cover and the recording. Now let's talk about the music. Tell me something about the music. How do you people like this demo? Or the second half of this demo?
I guess we're starting with Thrones of Ice?
Thrones of Ice, yes.
Is that like a Rain in Blood thing where the album's like Rain in Blood and the song is Raining Blood? And they're like, because I never knew like whether it was a typo when I saw like track lists, or whether it was Thorns or Thrones or whatever. Yeah, I mean, I like a lot about this track. It sounds very much like 1996 black metal, and I think the synth, the keys sound really good. The guitars don't sound good, and the drums are rough. They're a little hard to listen to. But the music itself is like pretty straightforward. I was trying to find, Henry had a blog post years ago where he talked about what bands influenced which Moonsorrow albums, and I don't know if he went through the demos, but I don't listen to like a lot of like Emperor but it had some like pretty like what I understand to be like sounds a lot like Emperor.
Yeah, first demo.
And it has like a rhythm that is to me a very Moonsorrow rhythm, and because I don't listen to Emperor, I don't know if they got it from Emperor, but it's like a triplet feel. So where you can kind of count it as like 1, 2, 3, 4, or like 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. And they are off the bat already using that, and to me like that's kind of like the Moonsorrow sound. And I'd be really interested to hear what this song would sound like re-recorded, because I can see it being like a pretty standard, not in like a bad way, but like a pretty middle of the road 1996 black metal release.
Well, I can add something to the triplet thing you mentioned. There is a specific Emperor song which is Inno a Satana. In Italy we say Satana, but the accent is not important, which is an 6/8. So, and the end of the Throne of Ice song reminds me of the end of Inno a Satana, because it has some clean vocals on it. So made by Harry, I think, if I'm not wrong. Like Isan at the end of Inno a Satana. And so I think Emperor is the dominant influence on this song. And I've
So-
seen live recently also. They closed with that song, I think. Very cool.
And so that is true. And also what Sasan said, that boom, putapu, what you hear is basically that drum pattern and the keyboards. The guitars are somewhere buried, but the most prominent is that drum pattern and the keyboards. That is very Emperor as well, early Emperor.
Ton 10 tin. Editing in.
Well, to be honest with you, I was really convinced when I was saying that, but then I went to find a clip for including here, and honestly, I didn't really find that exact drum pattern or rhythm or whatever it's called. So maybe I'm just mistaken, or maybe I'm missing it completely. I don't know. But I cannot include a clip because I listened to the first demo and the EP and I couldn't really find.
Tin 10 ton. Editing done.
Yeah.
I think we are on a very nice track with our thinking here, because I remember we were talking about Balsagot a lot with Henry when we had the talk with him. It's in my notes for the promo song later on, the influence of Balsagot. But when I got my high school degree or something, my gift for myself was a new version of the re-release of Emperor with a lot of interviews in it, and there was a clear connection with Balsagot for the keyboard part. And I think if Henry loves keyboards and he loves Balsagot, obviously he had listened to a lot of Emperor in the early 90s when it was coming out. So I think, yeah, for Thrones of Ice, I say pretty much that Emperor should have been a huge influence.
Yeah, I actually have a lot of thoughts on the sort of like Emperor kind of keyboard sound, which we'll talk about more when we get into some of the later songs that kind of use it a little bit more prominently.
Yeah.
But it was interesting to me looking back, and I don't really hear any Bathory like here.
No.
No.
Doesn't really sound like that was, and you know, my kind of memory of, I guess, how I imagined early Moonsorrow was a lot of like Bathory worship, but not really. Like that got mixed in later. And it's not as clean a progression as you want to make it sound when you look back listening to it. Like, oh, they were into this and then they got more black metal. Like it starts out very black metal and then it gets not black metal and then it gets more black metal and then it gets less black metal. It's all pretty strange and interesting. What I will say is that lastly about this song is Vile's vocals are a little rough here. I think I know what he's like trying to go for because
That's
you hear
Henry.
it on the
Henry
next.
singing.
Oh, really? Wait,
And
so then
Vile
what
is
was
playing
Vile doing?
drums.
Oh, he's doing the
Boom,
keyboard
pitakum,
thing.
boom, pitakum.
Fascinating. I thought it was Henry doing that and Vile singing. Okay. Who sings on? Wait, okay. We'll get to this when we get to Metsä, but does one of them sing one song and the other one sings the other?
I don't think so. No, I think so. In Thorns of Ice, it's Henry singing, but from Metsä on, it's always Vile, I believe.
Fascinating. We'll talk about it. But yeah, no, that's what I had for this first track.
I wrote the structure of the song. I don't know much about music, so it's not great. So there is one riff which I called A, and another one which I called B, but there are three variations of that one. Very little differences, but they are not always the same. So I call them B, B1, and B2. Okay, so the structure is intro, A, B, B1, break, B2, B1, A, B, B1, break, B2, B1, break, A, and outro. So it's just two riffs. It's pretty simple. The song is also short, like 3-4 minutes, I think 4 minutes or 3:50 or something like this. So, well, it was clear that they wanted to do something, but they were still at the very beginning.
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of people start wanting to write like long kind of complex music and so they just end up with a lot of unfinished ideas. And I think the way that they approached it, which is like we have two riffs, like how can we turn that into a song and like make that the biggest kind of fullest thing, is a really smart and really effective way of getting that experiencing, because ultimately there's like riff writing and there's like songwriting and they're different skills, right? You can write individual riffs for 20 years and not get closer to figuring out how songwriting has a lot more to do with like the transitions between things and writing something that feels like it has a beginning, a middle, and an end and stuff like that. And the only way to get good at writing whole songs is to just write whole songs. And I think a lot of times, like bedroom musicians and whatever, get stuck on writing just individual riffs without trying to put it into a song. And they just end up with a bunch of stuff they don't know how to actually use.
Yeah, that can be. Well, one can say, and I think we will all agree, that a defining characteristic of Moonsorrow, like from the very beginning until now, is that they are great at repeating a lot without sounding repetitive. Every time they change the drumming, they change the speed, they change the tempo, or maybe not the tempo, but the time signature, and the instrument they play the melody with. But yeah, there is always a lot of repetition. And what is the most masterful skill, in my opinion, is to make it always enough, but never too much. It never sounds underdeveloped. It never sounds overextended.
You know, speaking of our interview with Henry, I realized I had forgotten about this. I realized that I once recorded a video of me talking about all of the Moonsorrow songs and what I thought about them before we started doing this. And I listened to the part where I'm talking about Huto, and I said, the only thing about Huto is I think they use that idea a little bit too much. I think that's the only Moonsorrow song where I feel like, okay, you did this idea like one too many times. And then I think when we talked to Henry, he was like, yeah, I think I did that a little bit too much in Huto. And after he said that, I would hear it and I thought, maybe I'm just hearing it this way because he said it. But no, I'm on record having said I had that thought beforehand. But no, you're totally right. Like the reusing the same idea and bringing it back a lot without it getting stale is something that they do really well, and apparently we're doing from the very beginning.
I mean, just look at the song Jumaltenaika. It's 15 minutes. It's, I think, very few riffs, very few melodies. And it's such an amazing song. And so how can a 15-minute song be very straightforward? Well, it is.
I have two things to say on that, to say that basically you are right, guys. First one is Uto was my first song into Moonsorrow, so it's probably my favorite song. And it kind of pains me to say that I think it could be a little bit shorter, but I'm still loving it too much. The other thing is this is a very strange things to say, especially in the black metal podcast and stuff, but I really don't like Burzum. And I think Burzum is fucking too much repetitive. Like it should go with other styles at this point, not black metal. And they don't do that. And I'm glad they did not.
That is the perfect transition into this next song.
Yes. Please do.
I really don't like Philosophem. Please get your
No, I don't love Philosophem, but I do really like Vis Lisa Taros and Bilis. Is that the first one he put out after he got out of prison?
After prison.
Yeah.
It's my favorite Bible.
That I like that one. That's so funny. That's my favorite too, and I think maybe there's something like similar taste there. Yeah, I like those two a lot. And anyway, the next song, Wolves, a Sculpture of Ice?
Snow.
Sculpture of Snow.
Of course. Yes.
Is with a carrot and
an ice sculpture. That doesn't make any sense. A snow sculpture. That's what it is. No, that's just Tom Het from the end of the Vis Lisa Taros album. It's not the same song, right? But it's clearly the same idea of like ending a black metal album with this like kind of dreamy space out kind of synth thing. They do add drums to it, which is interesting. Even though the drums, it's okay. I really like this song. It just, in order for the hypnotic effect to work, you just can't miss notes, and they do that too many times. Like the drums will come in like half a beat too late or something, and it always kind of like pulls me out. I have a lot of thoughts on like time correction and stuff like that, that this song made me think about. But all in all, I think the main thing to say about it is that it is really strongly Burzum influenced to my ears.
A lot of black metal musicians of the in the 90s used to have side projects for dungeon synth and or included some ambient dungeon synth sounds in their albums. Also, for example, Satyr of Satyricon had a side project
Wongraven.
called Wongraven, and he made this kind of thing. So it is in line with the scene, I think.
I wonder if the percussion is a hand drum because it sounds like that, no? Sounds very hand drummy, or maybe it isn't. I don't know.
I don't remember something sounding hand drummy. Sounded like keyboard drums to me, but I'm not listening to it now.
But it's cool that we arrive at the same kind of conclusion, but not on the same path. For me, turns out that Wolves, Sculptures of Snow, is the song I've listened the most of all the songs we are to talk about today. Because I'm a huge Dungeon Sim guy and I'm a huge summoning fan. And for me, I was more comparing it to the early summoning and Dungeon Sim scenes than Burzum, based on the fact that I don't like Burzum.
Yeah.
But for me, if you can be very like gentle and like the first demo and stuff, early age, this song is great. I love it so much. And I really enjoy the fact that with this demo of 2 songs, this kind of outro is longer than Thrones of Ice. But the mood is here, not the Moonsorrow mood from later on, but if we are seeing it as a more ambient Dungeon Sim piece, I think it's ticking all of the boxes you want to hear in the 90s and now in the revival from 10 years ago now. I think this song is great. I love it. This very bad sound is perfect. It's better this aesthetic of an ambient outro, I think, than Thorns of Ice, which is a good song too, but in my opinion, I would more listen to Wolves than Thrones.
Well, it's interesting to hear that there's a bunch of lost songs. That makes sense because there's like an outro that's like longer than the entire demo you're an outro to. But Abel, I feel like you were about to say something.
I was going to say that I'm surprised by what I'm hearing from you guys because it's 5 minutes and 43 seconds, and I thought everybody would agree that is 5 more minutes than it needed.
Yeah, but
No,
they did not know we were going to play Lord of the Rings, Warhammer, and D&D, and needed some songs for the fucking playlist.
I like the song fine. I have problems with it not using a drum machine. I think if the song used a drum machine instead of like keyboards that are making drum sounds, I would like it. But one song that is similar to this that we haven't gotten to is the outro of Tamikuin and Talvi, which is one of my 3 least favorite Moonsorrow songs. That one, I feel like we'll get there, I'll talk about it, but it's not just like these ideas always are good, but I did like this one. And, you know, for Metsä, they're still using fake drums, but they actually have a drum machine this time. And I think it sounds a lot better.
Do you remember this guy from the 90s named Jim Kirkwood?
No?
So this is a Dungeon Synth musician, and a lot of Dungeon Synth labels like remade a lot of this stuff, and it was like prolific. A lot of albums in the 90s, and it's kind of always the same in my opinion, and I'm not buying it. Like there is way better stuff, and when re-listening to Wolves, I found myself like enjoying more this like kind of not perfect version of a song. with its flaws than all that this guy made in the 90s.
Well, it's really interesting because there is like this idea that drum machines and stuff are too rigid is like a real thing, right? You know, people use a lot of fake drums in metal these days, and a lot of people feel like it's gotten too rigid. And Henry, when he was doing mixing, I remember looking at his price options that you could just like have him mix your album, and one of the one of the options was like drum timing correction is not metal. If you want me to do it, it'll cost extra. Uh, so it's funny that like yeah, like Henry also doesn't prefer that things are like perfectly in a grid, but yeah, I mean it's I think it's kind of overblown. I think people talk about like how robotic drum machines sound, which is like kind of true, but also like Blue Monday is a drum machine. Like Michael Jackson used drum machines on Thriller. Like those are the songs the most humans have danced to like ever, right? So I don't think it's quite as extreme as people make like these rigid robotic whatever perfect drums sound. But I think for my taste, you'll disagree with this, Tomas. I think from my taste, Wolves is a little too far from perfect for my taste.
No, but I do agree. It's just that I'm kind of in love with the general mood, and I'm
Yeah.
like completely okay with forgiving every stuff happening in the song as long as I'm like pleased.
Yeah.
And for the drum machines, of course, for all the styles, it's kind of mandatory sometimes. If Blue Monday was made with a less rigid stuff, it wouldn't work at all.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was funny to re-listen to this song after so many years, and I was saying to myself, I really have to put that one in my like Sunday miniature gaming playlist. Like it's going to suit super well, and as a
Blue
very
Monday,
nerd. It's not Blue Monday, Wolves.
Blue Monday from Blue Monday by New Order.
Yeah.
I don't know this song. Google is telling me about it.
Yeah, you'll like it. You'll like it. Everybody likes Blue Monday.
It's our mandatory festival song. It's the first
Yeah.
song we play when we have like the tents and the drinks and stuff.
It's
Before
great.
even the festival begins, we are listening to Blue Monday and Japanese funk. But it's
You've probably heard it, Abel, but if you haven't, you'll like it.
Maybe I did.
Something to the previous song, so Throne of Ice. I found an interesting comment on YouTube by some guy called 221AN, who noticed that the theme at 3 minutes and 30 was used again for a Fintroll song, Vattianda. And I've searched the part. There is like close to the end of this Fintroll song, there is a keyboard part which is actually very, very similar to the section here. I think he edited, he reused the same chart sequence for Fintroll, or maybe something very similar.
Ton 10 tin. Editing in.
Honestly, I'm not completely sure what they're talking about. Only similarity I can find is this.
here's an interesting thing. That song you're talking about is on the first Fintroll album,
Yeah, the
and
first.
Henry didn't write most of the songs on that, and I just looked it up, and he's not credited for writing that song. And I mean, you can contribute one little idea somewhere in a song and would not get like writing credit, but it's interesting that he's not even credited for that song that came up in, because it says music by Somnium for.
Maybe just a coincidence, I don't know.
Yeah,
But
but it would be a weird coincidence for it to be a song that he also played, so.
yeah.
They knew each other probably. I mean, Helsinki scene probably wasn't huge, and maybe the guy who wrote the song had heard the. No, not this demo. Not this demo. Sorry, didn't see anything. He wouldn't hear this demo.
Right. So I mean, it's probably Henry reused it, but I don't know. I don't remember the Fintroll song you're talking about, so I don't know how like prominent it is in the song.
Just in one part, close to the end, so not prominent at all, but
Yeah.
still a part of it.
Yeah.
And this was nearly 3 years after the Moonsorrow demo, so I don't know.
I don't know
Yeah,
if you guys
that's-
know, but this Wolves has been used a lot of times as an outro in concerts in the last few years. Usually it's either this or Matkan Lopusa. You guys don't go to Moonsorrow concerts, so you don't know about this.
Yeah, I wish I could. But they're playing in France, right? Is that anywhere near you, Tomas?
When do they play?
Are
I
they playing in
forgot.
France? They're playing in Czechia in February.
Right, and then they announced another show, I think
Oh,
in
okay.
France. Why would
I
I
have
go to
to-
Czechia? I'll go to France.
I have to check that because
Doesn't
I
matter.
don't.
This doesn't
I-
need to be in the podcast, but I'd love to go. And they're not going to come back to the US anytime soon that isn't on a cruise ship. So I might just have to make a trip to Europe.
Well, I am most probably going to Czechia. I mean, something has to be very wrong for me not to go there. And Mikkel is probably going as well. So let's have an epic Heathen gathering there.
Yeah.
Tan 10 tin. Editing in.
We did go. Sasan did fly all the way to Europe, and the two of us, as well as Mikkel, met in Brno, in Czechia. We filmed the concert, and you can find it on our YouTube channel, the full concert. Super cool.
Tin 10 ton. Editing done.
Anything else about Thorns of Ice?
Ready for Metsä.
Ready for Metsä. Okay, history bit. Sorry about it. Skip it if you wish. Metsä means forest is the first demo with a Finnish name, although the lyrics are still in English. They are super fucking childish, written by Henry. The title was going to be Trimgjul, which is something from Viking mythology, but then they decided that it was too hard to remember or spell or pronounce even for them, so they went with Metsä instead.
Tan 10 tin. Editing in.
And by the way, only a few days ago, I noticed that the tape, if you unfold it, on the back part of the paper, it has some runes, and the runes say Skogen, which is the forest in Swedish. Not Skog, which would be forest, but Skogen, the forest. Finnish doesn't have articles, ever, it's like Russian. So, does Metsä mean forest, or does it mean the forest? Let's call the linguistic patrol.
Tin 10 ton. Editing done.
It has one intro, Jopi Möysaa, with sounds taken from the intro to an album by a band called Demoniac. And today, as I was researching about this Demoniac, the album is called Prepare for War from 1994. This Demoniac is a band from New Zealand. And they started doing some sort of black metal, a bit of everything, but mostly blackish, evil stuff. But then what is funny is
It's
that...
Dragon Force, right?
Exactly, yes.
Yeah.
It morphed into
I know.
Dragon Force. I was like, what the fuck? I just found
Isn't
out
that
about
funny?
it today.
No, I knew that Dragon Force used to be a black metal band. I didn't know that they're sampled on the demo.
Yeah, so the first released Moonsorrow demo has a stolen intro from Dragon Force, stretching a bit the... So this band were from New Zealand, and they moved to England. Then they split up, but not all of them, but several of them created another band, which was called something I forgot, and soon they changed the name to Dragon Force. But the last Demoniac album is already very Dragon Forcey. It has harsh vocals, but otherwise it's very fast and melodic.
Well, I thought the intro was really pretty, so they stole a good intro.
Yeah, and actually the Demoniac intro is, in my opinion, better because it starts with all these battle sounds and then adds some epic keywords and stuff. What Henry did was he took those first few seconds, which are I think 50 seconds, and added his own stuff over it, but not a lot. And then because it was the end of that section and he still wanted to add more keywords, then he copied and pasted. So it's the same twice.
Nice.
Ton 10 tin. Editing in.
It's actually 3 repetitions. 40 seconds, then another 40, so exactly the same, and then just 25 or 30. Don't worry, I'm not including a clip of this.
Tin 10 ton. Editing done.
Okay, tell me something about this intro. If you want to say something else. I know it doesn't have a lot to say, but...
It's Emperor again.
Emperor again?
Yeah,
No,
It's literally the intro of the Nice Side Eclipse for
No,
me.
the Night of the Eclipse is...
Though, on which song? But this kind of like fire sound with keys right behind it. It's Emperor for me, 100%.
Nah, the intro for the Night of the Eclipse is very different from the intro for... I strongly disagree with you here.
I have to double check if I don't say any mistakes.
The demo as a whole sounds really Emperor to me. I don't listen to enough Emperor to like really know, but it's just kind of like what I think of when I think of this kind of music. I think of like Emperor.
Yeah.
And as far as the intro goes, my only note that I wrote down is that it's weird to imagine listening to this music with like 1997 Walkman headphones. Remember like the very flat, small headphones?
Mhm.
Not very good. And I'm like listening to it on like studio monitors now. And you're listening to it on a tape. Like it made me wonder what it would actually be like to listen to. I'm sure Tomas has the tape and the Walkman. But
And the flat headphones.
yeah.
Only
No.
professional stuff.
Okay, good. But yeah, it kind of made me wonder. And also like on the last album also, like the synth sounds a lot better than the other instruments because the synth is a professionally made sound and you just like record it. But with like the guitar, like miking up your amplifier and like setting the tone by yourself and whatever, like it's gonna sound terrible when you don't know what you're doing and you have bad equipment. So it's really interesting on these demos, more so on the first one, less so on this one, hearing like this gorgeous sounding synth and then just like pretty rough sounding like guitars, vocals, and drums.
Okay, so I just found the name of the Emperor song I was searching. It's Into the Infinity of Thoughts. And
Yeah,
so
that's the first.
and I think it's pretty the same intro. If you want
No,
to listen
man.
to it again, just to kind of the same like mood and sound design.
Maybe the mood is similar, but the intros are different, in my opinion.
I don't know. Maybe
Um,
there is something there, but to me, this I would never. I mean, maybe you have a point somewhere, but I would never think
but
of comparing these
but
two.
I'm feeling it's kind of not obviously the same, like they copied or stuff like that. This is completely out of the way, but kind of the mood with the how the intro is sounding. I'm seeing here kind of a relation, if I can say so. Otherwise, Metsä it's probably one of the first thing we listened together with French Alex. Obviously, he's not here today, but we used to listen to a lot of Metsä back a couple of years ago, and I really enjoy what they have here in terms of sound. I'm not a huge like musician guy. Like if something is quite off, a bit off, it's not going to bother me. But the general mood and ambience, I'm loving it, and this demo is like great in my opinion.
Actually, there are two versions of it. I don't know which one
Yes.
you listened to
Ah,
because
Well, but
the
the intro is the same in both.
yeah, I think so.
Have you ever noticed that the first line in Tahdeton from Varioina is the title of this intro, Jopi Meusa.
Yeah,
Pom
yeah.
pom, Jopi Meusa. I was very proud to notice.
What does that mean? Something dark, something?
Darkness arises or something like this, no? Or darkness comes or something.
No, I hadn't noticed that.
Yep. I remember hearing Varioina the first time. Well, not the first time, but the first time I looked at the lyrics, I was like, oh, I recognize this. Very proud of it.
Well, actually, one of the other tracks is called Avitetti, or if I remember.
Yeah. That's one
Yeah.
of the interludes. But that's a lot closer in time to each other.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What's the I just have it. I don't have the song titles memorized. I just have it in my notes as Thimble. Thimble Winter
Fimbulvetr.
something.
Fimbulvetr Frost. Yeah, Fimbulvetr
Sure.
Frost.
Have we started talking about that?
Yeah, let's yes.
Yeah.
The first thing that stood out to me is that the vocals actually sound fine. Like they sound kind of like the vocals on they sound like what I think the vocals on the first album or the first demo were trying to sound like. Which it's very high pitched, but I don't know if something about the reverb or something on there. It's just kind of fits a lot better, and obviously I think the drum machine sounds way better than what they had on the last demo. And most of my notes here are just about like well, okay, so most of my notes here are just about like how it sounds very Emperor and they're using that groove that we were talking about before a lot. But kind of on the note of like them repeating stuff the right amount, I don't think they really had that like formula like down. There's parts of this track that kind of just don't feel like they're going anywhere. Like atmospheric, like they're setting a mood, but it doesn't have that kind of Moonsorrow like cinematic feeling of like you're going to another place and like a new thing is happening there. A little bit towards the end, then like the last minute or so, there's like a big change, and I like that part a lot. But yeah, and in that part, I thought there was a chord progression. I'll try to find a timestamp, Abel, if you don't know what I'm talking about later, where the synth and like the chords they're playing, maybe even on the guitar, sounds very like Habitetty or like Varjoina or something like they might do way later. Kind of this like melancholic epic vibe that they kind of lost a little bit for a while.
Is it around 15 minutes of the whole demo stuff? Oh no, you mean just for
kind of in the last minute or two of
there are some clean vocals, I think, in that part. Like
Na 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 na. This one.
yeah, more or less.
Because I was listening to a part in the third song, Vergelmir, and not Fimbulventer, and it was kind of fitting what you said, like about 15 minutes of the whole demo. Kind of this early, like cinematic way of making music. It's
But
kind
that
of
is
funny
that
because
is that is the next song.
yeah, so I'm like off by way too much. But it's kind of funny because I was with some friends just before our recording, and I was explaining I had to record a podcast about Moonsorrow. Oh, what is Moonsorrow? They asked. And I was back in the first episode we ever did. How do you describe Moonsorrow to your friends? So I stick to my plan. I told them it was black metal, but with a cinematic way of making music. And I think we can catch some glimpse of that in the demo. Very rough, like drafts and stuff, but
yeah,
it's not like a lot of other stuff we have in black metal and we love maybe about black metal,
yeah.
about repetitiveness and violence and stuff. There is some early elements of we are going to take you on a journey. So sorry, I talk too much.
No, totally agreed.
Concerning the drums, this is just a matter of opinion. I mean, it is a fact that when it's a drum machine, then they will be in time, always. But so there are times when me and my untrained ear cannot really tell real from machine, but sometimes it's very, very obvious. Like that sounds very artificial. And that honestly, I don't like at all. Again, personal opinion, I prefer real drums, even if the drummer is a very young Ville, rather than this. Although I guess what is done in Fimbulvetter Frost by the Machine, probably Ville couldn't do even in a simplified way after all. So maybe it would be just impossible for him to do it, any approximation of that. I don't know. But yeah, sometimes when they sound so, as you said earlier, it takes me out of when it sounds so plastic, so artificial. Sometimes it's just on purpose. I'm thinking of Mayhem, brutal. What is the name of that Mayhem thing? With the hands hanging.
Death Crush?
Yes, Death Crush, yes. And Death
Crush.
In the intro, boom, 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 and then that is also a drum machine. And at some point it goes like exaggeratedly high, that is very artificial on purpose, and I think that is a good touch. But when it's not on purpose and it's just the tones which aren't really tones, yeah.
When I when Abel listened to the album I put out, I think the first thing he said was, "Oh, the drums sound good," and I was like, "Thank God," because those are fake drums. But I took maybe a week to record all the vocals, maybe a week to record all the guitars, like a day to record all the bass. And I think I spent about 8 months working on the fake drums on that album, just over and over again. Because what you have to do is like try to make it not sound rigid and perfect, but it can't just be random. Like you can press one button and it'll randomly move things a little bit or make the volume of the different hits slightly different. It's called humanizing, but it doesn't really sound like a human, because a human doesn't, like when somebody's playing a blast beat, right? Like some of the notes are quieter than others, but they're not random. Like depending on where they are in the bar, like when they're counting, they'll emphasize certain things. So I had to go through the whole album like 3 times over, like note by note, trying to adjust the drums to make it sound good. And nightmare. Now I have a real drummer, and he's very talented, and I'm gonna let him record the drums. But yeah, like I agree with you, Abel, that like really fake sounding drums bother me, but I think they don't bother me as much as bad sounding drums bother me. I think obviously the best case scenario is real drums played well, but I think if I had to choose, like I definitely prefer the Metsä drums to the
Thorns of Ice.
the Thorns of Ice drums.
I think it's really interesting that we had the little chat about what is a demo just before, because we are talking about the sound of the drums and how they are not as perfect as they should be. And it's kind of like of an indication of the challenges that they had to go through to record those stuff back in the day. And you said that very well, Sasan. Now I have a drummer and he's very talented, but before you had to like go to great length to have the sound you wanted. And it's kind of like, I think, all compromises probably. And we are just listening to compromises and not like perfect view, perfect artist way of and that's why I kind of really enjoy these demos for Moonsorrow in these podcast purposes, but demos as well. As a guy working in sound design in video games, we are always making demos and stuff every fucking time just to share and to like teach. Oh, sometimes also. Sometimes you don't have the answer to your problem, so you are trying to find a way to get through that. And the drums in those demos are a perfect example of why you make a demo, probably when you don't have any experience and you just want to make something.
When you were talking about the history of this, Abel, you didn't get into did they record this on a 4-track? Like, did they record this themselves? Did they go somewhere to record it?
I believe they did it on a 4-track already, yes. This was on a 4-track.
And just like on their own? So it would have
Yes.
been like their drum machine.
Yes.
Okay. Very interesting. Anything else on Fimbulwinter Frost?
Influences, maybe also Immortal played a role on this song. There is a part which has the same rhythm of Call the Winter Moon.
Yes, that is in the beginning of the second song.
The second song. So,
Yeah, always made me think of that.
but I think also the first has some similarities.
Can
When
be.
they play tan ta 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 tan ta 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 tan ta 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 tan tan, this rhythm.
Okay, can be, yeah.
I don't really remember now the exact part. I'll find it, but yeah.
But you made a great transition.
Wait a second, because you just mentioned you were asking if it was their own drum machine, and they were actually already using a drum machine before Moonsorrow. In one of the tapes that they made before, there was one project called Moonsorrow, and there was a song called Moonsorrow. And actually, I will insert here the audio because I have the the audio of Henry singing the song because he still remembers it. And he then explains that it was a horrible drum machine, classic drum machine sound. And after that came Sorrow Woods with Billy on drums, and then came Metsä again with the machine.
Okay, so Moonsorrow was
I
basically...
think it was a different project.
Yeah, it was a different project, but Moonsorrow was the first project before Moonsorrow when we actually tried to do something decent. And we actually had like, well, not decent, but at least not that shitty stuff. And we actually had like many songs, and we recorded many of them. And one of those songs was actually called Moonsorrow. And
True.
yeah, Nightfall, Moonsorrow. I still remember that one. But yeah, after that project was never completed. I can't remember why. We recorded most of it, but then something happened and we never finished it.
Probably because of the drums.
Yeah, that was horrible drum machine, like the classic drum machines. But after that, there was this Sorrow Woods, which was like very short-lived thing before Moonsorrow, and we decided after releasing it as a Sorrow Woods demo, decided that fuck that, it's going to be Moonsorrow instead, and just blatantly stopped selling Sorrow Woods demo and changed it back into Moonsorrow.
Yeah, we did a new cover, basically just changing the logo on
Yeah,
it.
yeah.
Can't believe they had a drum machine and decided to just record Vila hitting notes on a keyboard instead.
Not on a keyboard, on a drum kit.
Oh, it's a real drum kit?
It's a drum kit, yeah.
I always imagined it was like a fake, like I thought it was like he's playing like a drum kit on a keyboard. You remember you played drums, you had a keyboard and it had like a drums sound?
Yeah. That is what Henry does in his demos.
That's a real drum kit?
That's a real drum kit, and it belonged to the father of Henry, who was a drummer, like a session drummer for lots of different bands and stuff. And Henry also tells that so after his father died already, the drum kit had a big sentimental value for his mom. So only Henry could play it, and maybe his brother, but not Ville or anybody else. But Ville was the one playing, and when the mother asked, "Was that Ville playing the drums?" No, it was me. But the guitar sounded very good. I don't think that was Ville guitar. Well, he has been practicing and improved a lot.
If you want to hear more about this story, go check our episode with Henry.
Yeah,
Did he
and
tell
go
that
check
story?
the book.
I
Not
think
in the. I don't remember if it was. No, I think it was in the book you will be able to buy at the end of the year.
But go check that episode either way.
Yeah, no, I'm excited. I've been reading the book that the guy put out, black metal, a evolution of the cult.
Of the cult, yeah. How do you like it?
That's really, so far so good. Long,
Yes.
but it's good. It's good.
Yep. So oh, by the way, this applies to both songs. The vocals are a bit, they have some sort of processing or some sort of effect applied to them, no? Which I find a bit weird.
Yeah, which I think kind of makes it work on the first song. But on the second song, I mean, I don't know if we're talking about Vergelmir, but it's Vergelmir's vocals sound a lot more like the Thorns of Ice vocals, which is why I thought maybe there was Henry again. There's just kind of a quality difference between the two, but they do have a lot of like processing on them.
I tried to like, with my experience, to try to check on what they could have used.
Yeah.
Definitely reverb, probably an EQ also. I think just to check some frequencies out of the way, and probably the quality of the gear played as well.
You don't think they like used, because I'm not listening to it right now, but the only other like processing they might put on it is like some like distortion on the actual vocal track?
Yeah, maybe. You listen to it, and I'm not a huge like how can I say that in English? I don't know exactly every time how to notice the true use of one plugin or stuff.
Right.
But for me, it's you have like all the stuff of the sound distortion of a phaser, but it's not a phaser. It's maybe a distortion. And it doesn't bother me too much in a way. I'm kind of okay with the sounding of the vocals on Vrelgemir. But yeah, they definitely like tried stuff. I know because every time I have a new toy for sound, I'm using it too much. Like, yeah, Thomas, your sound does not sound. Yeah, I was just trying that new stuff I bought, so I have to try it. So let's see when it's bad.
Right.
But they definitely, it's not just the plain sound of the gear, not just the microphone and stuff. And
Yeah.
there is more.
Well, for the song in general, it's not a song. I heard the song first on Tulimirsky, and when I heard it on there, it's kind of the song on that demo I care the least, or on that EP that I care the least about. And it was never really on my radar as like a great Moonsorrow song. But I think listening to it now chronologically, I think it's definitely the standout song so far, and sounds the most like good Moonsorrow. And I really like the drums. I think the drums sound super Moonsorrow, especially when it's like a rhythm change from the beginning and we go into that triplet sound, and then the like double kick comes back under it. I can find a timestamp. But I just think it's really good. I think the solo is good. It kind of just like ends. Like it sounds like they couldn't think of a good way to finish it. But I think the solo sounds great, And Henry hasn't played a solo since that, has he?
I don't think so, because then it was Mitya.
Yeah. Well, it's a great solo. It's very musical. It's really memorable and catchy. So I liked it a lot. And one of the things I noticed is that there's like long stretches of the song that don't really have the term, I guess, is ear candy. You guys heard this? It's just like little, and I think Moonsorrow does that a lot with like little rhythmic changes. We've talked about like you have the same thing. How do you keep it fresh and interesting and whatever? And I think
Were
when
you
they
not
do,
entertained, Sasan?
well, when they re-record the song, they add like a lot more of that stuff in. Um, and I think it's probably also because a real person is playing drums and they're like they would get bored of playing the exact same rhythm over
And
and over
particularly,
again.
it's a fucking amazing real person.
Yeah, for sure. But even in the ways that like the guitar will do like little things, they just add a little bit more variety when they re-record it. But yeah, I have some more thoughts, like big picture on the song and the demo. But what else do you guys think about like the actual song itself?
Well, actually, on the contrary, um, I loved that song. It was one of my favorite, and I've listened to the demo version before Tulimursky came out. So uh, it had a different effect on me, and I also like the fact that the original one has like a lo-fi outro, which I don't know. It gives me uh, an atmosphere, I think, which the newest doesn't. And it has a title. I think it's called Pakanavedet, if I'm not wrong.
Yes.
Is it that one? It is the first
The
Pakanavedet
so
because
the outro has the title Elivagar Pakanavedet.
Elibaga,
Pakanavedet is between brackets. And Pakanavedet
yeah,
2 is Kolyo Yarvenyala from Sudanuni.
Sudanoni. Yeah, I don't know if there is a connection between these, but probably not. But yeah, it fits perfectly for an ending. And also I mean, the acoustic with this lo-fi quality really makes the atmosphere, I think.
Yeah, it's interesting that acoustic was recorded for the first demo, but didn't
Not.
get saved because the music so far, like I wouldn't expect to hear a lot of acoustic guitar in like Emperor, right? Or kind of like it's kind of like the first time they're bringing in anything resembling folk. We'll talk about that more on the next demo. But yeah, it does start to have some of those like folk elements from that lo-fi acoustic guitar for sure.
And folk guitar just rocks. I really enjoy this outro with the combination of the folk guitar and the lo-fi aspect. Like we don't have any like proper way to. We are not like Paco de Lucia and stuff.
Paco de Lucia.
So it's going to sound like rough, but I think it works perfect.
And also the speech. I mean, how it closes the song. It is perfect. And I think they cut it for the re-recording for reasons. I mean, for the set list of the
Yeah.
EP. The same reason they cut the Taiste Lupo Yolasta intro, I think, which is also great.
Wait. Speech.
I remember a speech.
Abel is on something right now.
Yeah,
Yeah,
speech.
the talking.
But that is in the Tulimursky version. No?
No,
I'm
it's in
sure.
this.
I think it's in the demo.
Where? I
Can we
don't
say
I
deny
just
it.
listened to it. It was in there.
I
I
believe
don't.
you. Can you tell me? I
Yeah,
believe
here,
you
let's.
completely,
I'll
but
take a look. I'll take a look.
I'm in this
can we
full demo video that Thomas. And when you search, I found here the credits for Metsä. It's Ville just vocals, and Henry does the
all
clean
the
vocals plus guitar, synth, and drum programming. So yeah, vocals are Ville in both songs except for the clean ones.
Is this outro our first like kind of glimpse of the influence of Bathory?
Can be.
I did have that thought also. Yeah.
Because it's completely anachronic. Um, the way I'm going to point this out. But strangely enough, the album of Battery I know the most is the not the last one, but the one before. So the one with the ring.
Destroyer of Worlds.
No, the one with Ring of Gold and
There is Northland 1 and Northland 2. Those are the last
oh
ones
yeah,
of his.
it's Northern one. And
Why?
typically, I don't know, it's the one I've listened to the most.
Okay.
My favorite one is Twilight of the Gods, but I've listened to Northern one more than Twilight of the Gods. This outro would fit perfectly, I think, in Nordland, which is like not existent at this point, obviously. But so yeah, I think this outro is really Bathory-like.
Yeah,
Yeah.
anyway, Abel was right. The speech was in the recording, but the old version has some vocals still at the end,
Okay.
which
I'm sorry,
Uh,
Sasan, to disappoint you on my Bathory worship, but it's
Well, it just blood, fire, death exists, and I don't understand why that's not the like you've heard it before, right? Like
yeah. But
you
I
heard
don't
it
know.
before, and you're like, nah, I like this other thing better. It's
Yeah, I know.
fascinating to me.
I don't know. I have Twilight of the Gods, which is my favorite one, and Nordland is always in my car. So
Yeah, really interesting. No, one thing that so you know there is like Bathory, there is some like Emperor, there's some like Burzum in there, in the kind of like chords they play. But I think all in all, like I imagine if Moonsorrow had gotten a record deal, like if this demo had gotten really popular, they wouldn't really sound like Moonsorrow now. Like they would kind of sound like I call them like Danny Elfman black metal bands. You know, like Dimmu Borgir and like, you know, like da 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 da, you know, like yeah,
I'm gonna.
I kind of and I think you hear it even more on the next demo. I think the second track on the next demo, but I guess it makes sense that that's kind of like what was going on in Finland at that time. Like folk metal hadn't really started yet, had it?
I don't think so, no? It was
Like
more
on the next
2000.
demo, it's a year later and they're going fully folk metal on that one. But at this point, it's still like dungeon synth. There's like little folk things. Like I don't know when the Ulver album Kveldsanger came out, but that's like a black metal band doing a folk album. I think it might be later than this.
Let's
So
find out.
yeah, it's kind of I wonder what your guys' take on this is. Like, do you think if they had become successful with this, then they would have kind of had to do this style and wouldn't have had a chance to grow? Or do you think, I mean, I guess they changed their sound when they had a record deal anyway, so maybe they just wouldn't care.
Kveldsanger is from 1996,
Okay.
just for
Okay.
your information.
I think your point and idea is really interesting to think about. Like, let's extrapolate on another timeline. They have a record deal with that. Based on my brief exchanges with Henry and his love for so many strange bands, including the Pink Floyds and all the like more 70s prog stuff. I think eventually that would have been a time where they would have made a Moonsorrow album that we know now.
Yeah.
But probably they would have like more, how can I say that? Forgettable beginnings, probably.
Right.
I don't know, it's not really fair and nice to say it like that, but maybe those demos were useful for them in ways we don't understand as to shape their sounds and what they really wanted to make right after. And the fact that they didn't have any like record deal at the time.
Well, have they talked about this? Like, Abel, like what? Because they were trying to actually sell this, right? So they would, I don't know if they weren't playing shows yet, but like what
No.
sort of response did they get from this demo? Did people like it? Like what?
Yes, they sold like 200 copies, and they were, yeah, I will read you something because I remember
Just before you read it, Abel, I may have already talked about it, but did you watch, guys, the documentary about the early beginnings of Enslaved? It's
Yeah.
from the Norwegian television, and
Yeah, I hadn't watched it when you guys mentioned it the first time, but in the like 9 years since we started this podcast, I did find the time to go and
Did-
watch it. It was really good.
and yeah, and I think there is a lot of similar
is it
stuff.
on YouTube?
It's on YouTube. I will send you a link. I'm just
Please.
going to check that. It's amazing. It begins by I forgot his name, but the bass player singer just fishing and telling everyone that yeah, I'm just going to fish every time I'm on tour.
Yeah.
But the ways and the strange ways they had to go through in their early career, because the show ends, they kind of begin to be not successful, but they begin to have some records and sell stuff. It's really the early years, and that's what I think is really amazing about this documentary. But they are always like making very real choices every time. Like, oh, this was our recording studio and we did not have any fucking money to afford it, so we borrowed to friends and stuff. And I think it's kind of the same probably with Moonsorrow, and they had like the time to mature their sound to their liking, maybe, and they did not fall into trap to be stuck in a sound that wasn't theirs and would not be theirs for years to come.
Yeah.
Yeah. So Ville says, so they were talking about the Thorns of Ice, and then he says,
When we released Metsä and hand printed and hand copied 200 some tapes, and they actually sold, it felt quite like we have reached a new level of rock stardom, because we never thought that any of our music could actually sell. We just made it for ourselves, and it kind of gave us a little push in the way that we realized that there might be some other people than just us who want to hear this stuff, and it made the thing a bit more interesting.
Yeah, it was some sort of like pushing us forward as well, to actually see that there are people who react what we have done and people are interested in it, and it felt like it was worth doing.
Yeah, there was this feedback coming from other people. Not only that we sold 200 copies of the tape,
Which was awesome, by the way.
which
at that
felt
time.
like 1 million copies.
Yeah.
We also got feedback from people who had bought it. We got these handwritten letters with their reviews of the tape.
Yeah, not
Yeah.
all of the reviews were bad this
Yeah,
time.
exactly.
There were some like even 4-star reviews. And yeah, that felt just fucking awesome.
Whoa.
there you go. I suppose there was a lot of rubbish going around at that time. Everybody with a lot of enthusiasm and everything, but everybody was 16. Everybody was very enthusiastic, but only a few were a bit better. So maybe when one of those slightly better tapes surfaced, then people liked
Yeah.
it, I guess. However, I suppose there was a lot of, well, I suppose no, there had to be a lot of blind buying because you read the description on the leaflet. Probably, I suppose that they were sending, every time you buy a tape, you get the tape plus some catalog, plus some flyer, plus some whatever. And the Metsä, Moonsorrow, the most epic thing, whatever. And you buy it because, okay, the cover looks nice, the description sounds interesting, but there was no
Yeah.
Bandcamp link to
Were there like shows? Like, were they just like going to a venue and seeing a band player, or was it just all like pretty underground, like tape exchange and stuff like that?
tape exchange, but all over the world. Like they were sending tapes to Korea and then getting another one from
Yeah.
Brazil and stuff like this. There was also local. They also tell about this, how they go to a venue which was called Lepaco that no longer exists. But that is where all the concerts happened, and they went just like other boys their age with their plastic bags full of tapes to trade and sell,
Yeah.
and other labels like theirs and stuff like this.
Anything else, Albel, before we go into promo?
So my notes about this Hvergalmir were that. So I agree with you that if you listen to the first Thorns of Ice, then Metsä in order, this is probably the strongest. I wrote start strong, really cool. Then at first I thought this is also quite simple. I started to do the same scheme with A, B, but then I soon realized that okay, I already forgot about the previous, so it's not so repetitive at all. Lots of melodies, the guitar solo you mentioned. Also, what I wrote as riff C, which is like the fifth, reminded me of Battery. I don't remember exactly right now which one it is, but yeah, the first Battery influence there. I wrote as well that keyboards do cool stuff, which I think is true. And another thing that we didn't mention is that Fimbulvetter Frost is 6 minutes and 50 seconds, 54. This one is 7 minutes and 50 if we don't count the outro. So they were already stretching the songs.
Mm-hmm.
Again, it's maybe an early way of trying to create a mood and a progression. Of
Yeah,
course,
but in this case, I don't think they are overstretched. I mean, I think that it's very justified. The main
No,
story
but
justified.
I do agree, but they are clearly not in. I think it's maybe more modern to have like this kind of punk black way of doing stuff in 3-4 minutes, very raw and violent way of giving your riffs to the publics. But it's probably again a test to check if their songs can be heard in the long run. Like we want to make, so obviously it's not classical music, but we want to make pieces. We don't want to make like songs for the radio, and we are going to try to hook for the most time possible with the stuff that we have because we want to tell a story and stuff. Yeah, they are trying stuff, definitely. Thanks for them. It will help them and make some really amazing stuff later on. But they have to go to this process of trying stuff.
Yeah.
And not just trying stuff on the like it's not the drawing board, but it's kind of the same idea. I'm not trying stuff in my room. I'm just checking now if it works as a whole song on a record that people can just buy and hear. And okay, we are satisfied or not, and we change or not, and we go from there.
That actually might be a good transition because the promo is trying a lot of different stuff.
Yes.
And I don't I mean, not everything works. I think most of it doesn't work for me, but I'm really curious to hear what the background is on that.
Wait a second.
Yeah.
Did you guys compare the two versions of Metsä, the original and the
I
remix?
just compared the original. I didn't recompare it with bass.
Tan ten tin. Editing in.
And I want to point out the similarity with Call of the Winter Moon by Immortal. We pointed out the similarity of one fragment of the first song, and there is also similarity in a fragment of the second song. It's hilarious. They're like opposite of each other. One is and the other is listen.
Tin 10 ton. Editing done.
Well, so I was listening to both of them like A-B, like a bit of so at the same time almost. And I found theoretically the original does not have a bass and the remix does have a bass. That I couldn't find for the life of me. I'm not very good at this anyway, so I admit that I'm not very good at this, but to me, the original already sounds pretty full, and in that sense, I really don't find any difference. However, the most obvious parts are the keyboards. So the remix, because it was also remastered, obviously, I think the master is better. It makes all that separation between instruments a bit better to the extent that it's possible. And there are additional keyboards, either additional or in the original they were very buried. And for example, I have the timestamps of the song, not of the whole demo, so the video that we are using is not very useful. But in Fimbulvetter Frost, in 137, there is a whole new keyboard doing funny things. It appears more times, 302 and 430. And then the clean vocals in the remix are a lot fuller. I think there are even not one person only, maybe two, or it's just dubbed or something. So those are the most prominent differences. And then in Hvergelmir, also keyboard in 140, 230, 620, maybe some other moment. I didn't write all of them. And the difference in Elivagar in the outro is that the remix has a mouth harp, the original mix doesn't. And the ending is a bit different. The ending in the original is simply a long fade out, and that's it. While in the remix, there is a partial fade out, but then the fade out starts earlier, and then you have crossfaded or whatever, some waves, sound effects of waves. And the vinyl version, if anybody wonders, is the original.
So then I probably never heard the remaster, because I've listened to the vinyl version and I've listened to, I think, the same no bass version.
Mm-hmm. It's on the Google Drive. You will find it there.
Right.
I ignored it completely. That's okay. Okay.
I think Henry put the FLAC files on the old website in 2003. So I don't know if we have those versions, but I used to have them somewhere.
The one they put when they made the remix, they put it for free on the internet, but it was MP3. It was not FLAC. I don't have it on FLAC, only MP3.
I
The
found
remix.
them in a blog many years ago, so I don't remember which.
The demos I was listening to in the drive were FLACs.
Yes, because those are from the vinyl. Somebody ripped it in good quality.
Oh,
But
right. I
but
get
that's
what
not a
you're
remix
saying.
anyway.
Yeah.
Let me tell you the fun facts of Metsä, of the remix. So the original Metsä was recorded in May 97. And then it was remastered, not yet remixed, just remastered in April 2001. So around the time when Sudanuni came out, by Marco.
Oh.
Interestingly enough. And then 2 months later, in June 2001, is when Henry recorded additional keyboards, bass, additional clean vocals, and mouth harp, and added them on top of the mix.
Tan Ten Tin. Editing in.
Yeah, that was 2001. But this version of the demo was actually released in 2002. More specifically, on March 21st, 2002. They uploaded it in MP3 format and put the link on their website together with new cover artwork files so that people could download them and print them and make their own CD.
Tin Ten Tan. Editing done.
Okay, so let's promo some promo.
Hey, what a weird demo promo is.
Yeah, just one song, pretty short.
Did something happen to the recording?
It was just very bad. I mean, I think that can be heard. It sounds a lot worse than Metsä, and even than.
Like,
Yeah,
why? What
something went
happened?
wrong. Let me see if I find the reason.
If I can just, this is the stuff I have on YouTube on the video. Unreleased promo. Flow in production resulted in terrible distortions.
Yeah. It doesn't just sound like bad recording quality. It sounds like something happened to the actual recording. Well, it's also weird because they didn't release this, and going from Metsä to Tommy Queen and Talvi makes sense. But this is like a weird detour that that you would never have known happened. Like it's way, way folkier. That has a lot of like Korpiklani-ish elements in there.
You know what it reminds me of? Amorphis. Amorphis was
Mm,
huge at the time. I think from 96 it's Elegy, and 1904 had been Tales from the Thousand Lakes. And to me, lots of parts in the song, starting from the sound totally Amorphis to me.
you're right because I never really listened to much Amorphis, but Amorphis is also the band that Korpiklani says like, yeah, we started doing folk metal because of Amorphis. So I think the
Listen to
time.
Tales and to Elegy. They are very good albums, and you will hear definitely the similarities.
But it's
I
also like the same melody you just sang, that flute, that's not a flute, that's
No,
keyboard.
keyboard.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's not even trying to sound like a flute because they have that little like whoop, like do you know what I'm talking about? That little that little sound in
Amorphis.
there. Yeah,
Tales.
really, really interesting. The other interesting thing about this song is there is acoustic guitar being strummed through the whole song, which
The
is,
whole of it.
I think there's acoustic guitar through the entire song,
Okay.
which is definitely like an interesting choice. Like every now and then, Moonsorrow will do a thing like on Have a Teddy, where like there's like a big moment where music starts crashing in and there's like one strum of an acoustic underneath the distorted guitars, like ling. But this has just strumming. There's parts where it's just the acoustic guitar, but even when there's the, electric guitars over it, there's still acoustic guitars strumming the whole time, and definitely feels like very experimental with like trying to figure out how to do this whole new exciting folk metal genre.
I agree with you. This is kind of strange based on what we just covered and other stuff. But I was just listening back to a part around 2:30, which sounds for me very Moonsorrow, early beginnings, but album speaking.
Are you talking
Um,
about when Henry is singing?
Not really 2:30, and I lost it, but before Henry singing.
Yeah, but it would be like right before it. Because I
Yeah,
have a note here, 239,
yeah, I think it's that.
about Henry's voice.
It's right before that. I know this kind of like okay, past the bad quality of the recording I'm listening to. It's not that off from what we will hear in the future. There are again some elements I think from the early Moonsorrow album period.
Yeah, I mean, it definitely has a lot more Bathory than we've been hearing so far. Like the outro of the first actual song on Metsä sounds like Bathory, but this sounds a lot more like Bathory. But yeah, it also like well, the part that I have written down where Henry's singing, it sounds very like not serious, right? Like ironic detachment, right?
Balsagot.
But I think this is the last time you hear Moonsorrow not sound like they're taking it seriously, because by the time Tommy Queen and Talvi comes out, I think that sounds like a band trying to make a serious album, right? Like Abel was saying earlier, I think on this it kind of sounds still a little bit like, oh, we're just kids, like we don't want people to kind of like compare us to like real bands and tell us we suck. So I think they're kind of like playing it for fun a little bit, so if somebody says they don't like it, you could be like, duh, like it's just a joke, we weren't even serious.
What is the moment that you're talking about? The timestamp or approximate?
2:39. Like the way his voice sounds.
Ah. Oh.
Yeah, like kind of sounds like he's making fun of it, you know?
I think I don't know if that was on purpose or not, but every time I remember reading this even in the old website and super old interviews from 2000, 2001 too. They were already saying that the worst part of the demo was the vocals.
Of this demo or the demos in general?
No, this demo, the
Oh.
promo. And the main reason why they didn't. So the sound was bad. The playing, they weren't satisfied with themselves. The songwriting, they realized they didn't like it that much. And especially the vocals were the worst. If I remember right, I read something like that. And even in the interviews for the documentary, they were saying the same. People call them non-vocals. So yeah, probably that's when they realized, okay, now we had one demo that was sort of successful. We want to be serious. We shouldn't be doing this because then it actually sounds like we suck and we didn't mean it. So maybe just let's be adults finally.
Ton 10 tin. Editing in.
Honestly, the more I think about it, and going back to the interview we did with Henry and the interviews for the book and the documentary, I really don't think that they were looking for this detachment that Sasan is talking about. This not being serious. That's true about earlier recordings, but by this point they already wanted to be serious. And that is partially the reason why they didn't release this, because it was no longer funny, sort of. And besides, reading those interviews, it seems to me that the vocals were done by Ville, because he seems to be the biggest critic of those vocals. So yeah, it was probably Ville doing those funny screams, and they probably didn't like them that much. They decided not to go with that. So yeah, for what it's worth.
Tin 10 ton. Editing done.
Because when they recorded Tommy Queen and Talvi, they were trying to make an album. Am I remembering that wrong, or was it always supposed to be a demo?
I have a quote for that. He purposefully released it as a demo because he wanted to show how there were so many crappy albums. I guess at that time the scene started to be saturated with black metal albums already, and many of them were very crappy. And he wanted to make a statement that there are so many crappy black metal albums. I'm going to make a demo that is going to be better than your album, and that is why they released it as a demo.
I mean, those are kind of my thoughts on the first track. I don't know if we want to talk about the second track separately, but the second
I
track.
mean, both are short. We can.
Well,
jump
I mean, the
back and forth.
second track sounds. I mean, I don't know what Amorphous sounds like, but I was like, this sounds like you're doing Children of Bodom or like Nightwish or something. And I looked it up, and Children of Bodom's first album was 97. Nightwish's first album was 97. Like, it kind of makes sense to me that if you're a teenager in Finland making metal at this time and like trying to, especially now that they're like thinking about like an audience for the first time, maybe this was their like trying to fit into a genre, but it just sounds so unlike them.
Yeah, I agree.
It's
The
yeah,
whole demo sounds like a diversion.
yeah.
However, I still prefer this. Okay, it's a repetitive outro, but it's just a few seconds or a minute or something, so that's fine. That's how you
Yeah.
do repetitive outros.
For the outro, I noted one thing. It's maybe due to poor quality music, but the guitar sounds exactly like Balsagot. It's my only note for the outro.
It's their only note for everything.
Yeah,
Yeah, basically.
But I mean,
I'm not a great like guy to pick some
what's
stuff
funny
out.
is you've been talking about Balsaget for 3 years, 4 years now, and I've still never listened to them. And I think another 2 years or so, I'm definitely gonna. I also haven't listened to Havakrunu yet. I'll
Which
get
is
around
great.
to it.
Which is
What
great.
about Nocturnal Mortum, the voice of steel?
Oh, that's right. Nocturnal Mortem is the other one that that you keep talking about, and I haven't.
I already
It's like
mocked
Pink
you in
Floyd
this
meets.
podcast. I already
The
mocked you
voice
in
know.
this podcast because of that.
The
You've
voice of
held
s-
up the album, you've pointed to it. I remember putting it on. I put it on, and then I don't know, I saw something shiny.
next time,
Got distracted. Well, yeah, that's all I have on this promo, honestly. Is there anything else that we haven't said?
It's
Nope.
the least interesting recording of tonight's episode, I think.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I think so
probably
too.
Moonsorrows in general. And it's
Yeah.
interesting that it's not even their first. Like when they started out, it kind of has more elements of what they would become. Or you can at least have that context of, okay, this is where they started, and you can kind of track the changes. This feels like it's not a part of Moonsorrow's history at all. I guess at this point, they probably weren't releasing like recording stuff under as many different names, or maybe because Metsä had been successful, they wanted to like make Moonsorrow the main thing. But I feel like if they had recorded this in 95, like they wouldn't even call it like Moonsorrow. Like they
Yeah.
wouldn't.
There isn't any continuity between the two tracks. There is a break,
Yeah.
and then another one starts, which is maybe better because without a sound break, a pause, it would have been worse than that. But yeah, it is not very likable.
Did they talk about what they were trying to do in the interviews that you did? Because it does kind of sound like, okay, what if we did what we're hearing with like the Children of Bodom sound, or like this like growing folk metal thing? And they did end up doing the folk metal thing, or at least being a part of that scene, but just in a very different, with a very different sound that was very much like their own.
What I understand from the way he talks about it, maybe he just doesn't have an answer to that question. It's like he probably himself was like, "What the fuck did I just do here, and why? Let's never release this and never talk about it again." That is what it seems to me.
Really interesting. Well, then how does the it's just weird to me that like there's this like folk thing that happens in the middle, and then they go back like, oh, whoops, let's go back to being like a black metal band that sounds like Enslaved. And then later they're like, no, wait, actually, let's do folk metal. Like, how did the folk stuff ever get introduced in? Because we started with Suda and Uni, and by that point, that was already, the folk stuff was already there, right? And so it's interesting that you can listen to the demos and still not really see when that stuff started getting worked in. I guess other than this.
Didn't really mention any like kind of prolific musician or bands in just not folk metal, but really folk Finnish music. I remember him talking about a band using like accordions and stuff, but more like of a kind of a Finnish prog band.
Yeah.
He playing in that?
No, just as a stuff he used to listen
Like
maybe.
to.
Does it ring a bell, or am I completely?
That does ring a bell. So it must have been in that conversation if we both kind of remember it. Man, I'm so glad that interview got recorded. Like, can you imagine if we just like talked to Henry one time for like 3 hours and asked every Moonsorrow question we ever had and then forgot the answers?
And a very shit joke, is it strange that it does ring a bell, but a bell is in Spain?
Oh, that's funny. Well, are you? You're in Hungary.
No, I'm in France. Oh, Hungary.
No, Abel. Yeah.
By the way, my name is Abel, not Abel. So Thomas is right in that.
Yeah, but
oh, I'm saying it wrong?
Yeah,
Abel?
Abel. Yes, that's correct.
Abel. There you go.
So Apple Podcasts has a wonderful feature since a few months ago that I forgot to tell our dear listeners, which is an automatic transcript. So and it's searchable. So I search for accordion. The transcript is not perfect, especially with punctuation and with some foreign names, but it's pretty good, surprisingly good. So he says,
I've been like bathed in folk music since I was born, basically. My father used to play a lot of like bands at the time I was born, and that was in the 70s. And of course, you know that the progressive rock music was really, really hot stuff in the 70s. And I don't know about other countries. I think in England, at least, Marco could probably answer me this right away. But there was some sort of like national romantic revival in those prog bands a lot in the 70s, which also meant a shit ton of Finnish progressive bands used folk elements in their music. And due to my dad like having so much connections to the progressive music scene in general, and Finland anyway being the agraric shithole it was at the time, folk music was pretty much like it was always there for me. So the more I just grew up, I realized the more spiritual aspect of it, and kind of took a deep dive to that stuff when I was a teenager.
I think that kind of is interesting because when we've been talking about the music, like he talks about it initially as having this sense of like, okay, we're not really taking this seriously. Like this isn't really who we are, really like what we want to represent. This is a joke. And it's interesting that once he does try to be like, okay, well, what is my, like, this is the actual music we want to stand for. I want to put my identity in this. That's also completely changes the actual sound of the music. And you start to do things like singing in Finnish.
I think part of the reason for changing the language was that Henry wasn't very keen on writing lyrics. The ones for Metsä were horrible already. I mean, if you read them, they're super childish and super...
The Raven Looms or something like that.
I can read you some. Black heart of snow, tell me secrets of the forgotten who lived before. Mighty Odin of thousand swords, do you know the name of mine? Yes, my son, I shall know your name and your prophecies of winter. So it's like a Manowar lyric or something.
Yeah, but what's
Kind
also
of.
funny is that like it sounds cheesier because it's in English. Like you could say the same thing in Finnish, and one, like I wouldn't know it's cheesy, but then even if
Yeah.
I look at the like translation, like if that was the translation of like the Poetic Edda or like some Greek epic or something, and that was like kind of like awkward, clunky, old-timey because it was translated, then I don't think it would sound corny or like cheesy, but I think it sounds that way specifically because it's English. Like things just sound really cheesy when you try to make them a little bit more poetic or epic in English, because I think
Especially
English,
if you're not a native and if you're not super good yet at that.
yeah.
Limited
They should
vocabulary and everything.
they should have used French. At least it could have sound sexy, maybe.
Hey Francesco, now to finish this podcast, I want to ask you a question. If you made a cover of the song Battle Hymn from this promo tape, what would it sound like?